If you haven't picked it up, all my stories are my favorites. They're like my kids, you know. But one of my favorite stories is about a first grade teacher that asked her children what they want to be. And one of them said, I want to be a doctor. The other, I want to be a lawyer. The other, I want to be a dad. And the other little girl said, I want to be the president of the United States. And one little boy never said anything. And so the teacher looked at him and said, well, you know, Billy, what do you want to be? He says, Miss Brown, I just want to be possible. I just want to be possible. And she said, well, I've never heard that before. What do you mean by that? And he said, well, my mama, she's always telling me, Billy, you are impossible. You are absolutely impossible. And I just want to be possible. So when I think of the labor of love, when I think of now in the early part of 2021, 30 years of taking a stand for a teaching that not only transformed my life, but saved my life. I think about adults in our world today and the children that showed up as a possibility of greatness and amazing accomplishment and dreams and ideals. And because they were put into a system that created them to be in a box, they forgot about the practice of you are possible, right? You are possible. They say that when a child starts school, they're one big question mark. You know, why do we do this? Why can't I do that? Why can this happen? What is that? What does that look like? All these questions. But by the time they're put in a box of some of the ways that education is placed upon us, they come out as a period. They stop asking questions. They've accepted the ordinary, as Kimberly was saying. They've accepted that, oh, this is the way it's designed to be, okay? And along the way, every now and then, you have a magical school, like Creative Play School, like we have here, that models recognizing the excellence and the possibilities of what children are. And to me, that's the glory of the New Thought teaching, is that we chip away those false beliefs that you have had about yourself, that life is supposed to be a struggle, that everything pretty much has happened to you that you don't like, it's all your parents' fault, that, you know, unless you have shame and guilt, you're not really earning your stay on the planet. And so we chip away all those false identities that have been put upon you as that creates that red energy as to why you have long-term pain. And we say, let all that go. Step into a place that says, I am possible. Everybody say that. I am possible. Turn to your loved one at home and turn to your child and say, you are possible. You are possible. You are possible. But here's the thing. It's not a platitude. It's not a cliche. It's not a poster on this Sunday morning. It's true. It's true. Claiming you are possible. And then coming from the inside out, you see. I did a soul retrieval. It's when, in shamanism, someone has either ailments or crisis, which is part of our challenge as well. We wait until something is definitively noticeable or wrong before we address how we are using preventive spirituality in our lives. And so in that particular energy, she came to me in chronic pain. And so that process is when you look at the images of someone's life, and you see where there has been energy loss. One of her biggest losses was when she was walked to the public education system. She had her totem, which was a huge bear. And the bear wept and left her and never returned. Wow. What does that say metaphysically? The imagination gets lost when you forget, right, that you're possible. The imaginary realm of that inner power gets lost when you forget that you live in infinity. The imagination is not exercised when you step into boxes. So that is my labor of love, is that I hold a dream that our whole education system will be so shaken up that we won't recognize it when we're on the other side of it. I've never used algebra. I've never had to know how to cut up a frog. I've never had to tell anybody what my SAT score is. I've never had to do so many things that I'm taught to do. And even New Thought trains their leaders the same way traditional education does, which does not work. Because it's about having you know that you're possible and knowing why. And knowing the laws that you're working with that connect with that. Right? It's about what do you want to see in your life that's possible, and let's focus there. Let's energize you there. Let's give you magic there, and let us create you there. So that's my new vow to all of you, is that I am on fire about transcending this box, because that is why the systems are no longer working. It's because we take all this magic of new possibility people being born and we put them into boxes. Traditional religiosity, public education, systems that say, don't think outside of this line, don't get outside of this line, don't go outside of this line, don't get outside. That's important if you're driving an automobile. I appreciate that. When somebody's driving within the lines, that means a lot to me. But anywhere else, no boxes allowed. We are called, and you can see it. And when you step back from it, you will see it the way I do. In John 10:10, it says, this is what Jesus is saying. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly, more and more and more. And we've been trying to figure out what Jesus was saying all these years later, right? And we debate about it instead of what it really says. When we take humanity and we act as thieves and keep doing things the way they've always been done, knowing they're not working, we steal from these children. We steal from these teenagers. We steal from adults. We steal, and then we kill them because they never get to understand all along that they were possible. They were possible. And as long as we're in that system, we repeat what we already know we no longer want. And I've kind of been looking for, where's this vision going? And then almost 3 years ago, a little girl finds me. One of my loving quotes, I'm not going to say my favorite quote because I've already used that card today, is, you wake up one day and you realize that a miracle is what happens when you wake up one day and you're there and you don't remember all the steps that you have taken that have brought you there. And I feel with every part of my being that that's one of the greatest blessings that that little girl has brought me, is that we have got to change what we're doing to magical children. We have got to change the childishness of adulthood. So don't tell me you don't have children, you don't want children, you're avoiding children. Not going to get out of this one. If you have totally discounted children, that means that you are working with your own childish nature to know that you are possible. You see, we don't get discounted because this is a collective. It is definitely a nationwide issue because we are training the gifted and we are dismissing the possibilities. And it needs to shift right now, right here, right now. And I'm affirming that out loud, that is part of our mission here, is to transform the educational system. to me, that's what 2020 is all about. Because until we do that, we can tell the greatest messages. We can have people going blah, blah, and quoting. We can do scripture. We can talk about stories. We can tell parables. But until we change the system, we are going to continue to produce people who are willing to be hurted, people that are willing to be afraid, people that are willing to be anxious, people that are willing to have panic attacks. Like I said to somebody, yeah, I would have a panic attack. I used to have panic attacks too. It's because I wasn't listening to my possibilities, because I was living in a box. I'd have a panic attack too. So, and I'm not saying that's the only reason, so don't even send me a comment on that. Thank you for sharing. We have work to do. There was a man that went to prayer, and he asked God, what is mine to do? And God said, you see over there that big rock? It's huge. You see it? I want you to go push it. So the man goes, and he pushes sun up to sundown. He pushes, and he pushes, and he pushes. And every day, he gives his endless time to push this rock. He pushes, and he pushes. And so he starts to lower his guard down. Anybody ever done that? He starts to question, what is it he's doing, pushing this rock? And so the adversary comes in and says, this is ridiculous. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? I mean, this rock hasn't even moved 1 millimeter. It hasn't moved at all, but you just keep pushing, pushing, pushing. So he starts to listen to all this. And he was getting ready to give up, but then he remembered to pray. And he said, God, what is this about? I've been pushing, and this rock hasn't moved. I have accomplished nothing. And God said, look at you. Look at the muscle. Look at how strong you have become. Look at the humility. Look at the self-reflection that you've been doing with all this pushing. I never asked you to move the rock. I asked you to push. And because you have, I will move the rock. We've got to grow up. We've got to stop chatting and just regurgitating on live stream. We've got to realize that we are alive, and that this is one of the fundamental answers to transcend the new era of where we are headed. But we must take it serious. We must be willing to do our part and to push where we can. I hold that for you. I hold that even though while you're pushing, that you're possible. Because if you don't know that, please don't do a poster and tell everybody else they are. The poster is how you live and move and have your being in spirit. It's how you're energized. It's how you're willing to push. It's how you're willing to walk, even though you can't see it on the other side. My friend Russell Hyland said to me the other day, he said, I remember that quote you said, and I was glad he did, because I didn't. I don't ever recall saying that. How can what is before us be for us? How can what is before us be for us? That's your question. And in that question, you'll know part of it is being possible. Thank you.